Hello and welcome back to... No, I was going to say something, but the intro was too far even for me.
What could you possibly say that was too far?
Well, if I say it now, I've done it, basically.
Okay, but you've now shown that you're self-aware and feel bad about it.
Welcome to Daddy Tanner's Aetheral Space.
You're right, I wish I hadn't heard that.
I tried not to say it, and you pushed me forward.
You know what? If you cultivated the right kind of humor and fan base for it, it would be funny, but the way that you are normally is what makes it curse.
I don't have the right energy.
You don't have, the Markiplier energy to pull that off.
What family position do I occupy, then?
You occupy Evil Vizier.
Evil Vizier? I'm not even blood-related.
Yeah, but it's still weird. Yeah, but imagine if Jafar talked to Jasmine like that. It would be wrong.
I imagine a lot of people did imagine that.
Okay, you're done. We're done.
What do you mean?
Now.
It's not me. I didn't imagine that.
Thanks for listening to Aetheral Space, and we'll catch you next time.
Read the story, reader.
Okay. Luna watched. The events of the day were already set. Jamie Pierrot was dead. Yulia Ifvoid was on her uneventful trip home. The prince had made its move. All the other pieces on the board dancing, forever dancing. Luna had not gone with Yulia back to Aberfasad. That path was viable, but far from ideal. There was still good work she could do in here, in the time allotted to her. Ruth Blaine, for one. Her survival grew more unlikely the longer the day stretched on. Luna's presence would counterbalance the peril there. The armored girl was required for a happy ending, after all. Not yet, though, not yet. For the time being, Luna had to wait. She remained silent, and she remained still, and she hid within the walls of the seed of man. She was used to waiting. She'd done it for nearly a century, after all. After the tides of battle had turned against the Arcana automatics, she and her counterpart had fled into the dark spaces, where no humans would think to follow. She had been half of a pair, a non-combat model partnered with the sun, a colossal engine of destruction, each covering the deficiencies of the other. That was the ideal kind of relationship between two beings. It was covering your combat weaknesses.
Yeah.
They had remained there, Moon calculating the future, Sun awaiting her commands, but the opportune moment for attack never came. Their time had long since passed, but at that point they weren't the sort of entities that could comprehend that, so the wait continued and continued and continued. Even when Sun's power reserves ran dry and he became a floating corpse, Moon had continued to wait and wait and wait. Until, like the sapphire star before her, she had drifted to Aberfasad. It was said that the sapphire star had taught the original Aberfasadian colonists how to peer into the future. Luna's contribution hadn't been nearly so vital, but her predictive processes were highly compatible with the Aberfasadian discipline of precognition. She had become something of a compass for them, sheltered by the great Hour clans, leading Aberfasad through the path of least resistance and most prosperity. She had even managed to pull together a self, however clumsy, and attain Aether. The tool that had ruined pitiful Atela, now wielded by one of her creations. Luna wasn't equipped to comprehend poetry, but she suspected it existed there. Just a little longer. She had to wait just a little longer, until all three mouths of hell had opened. Dragon swung his arm. It was clumsy, and the blow struck nothing but empty air, but the wave of pressure the movement produced was enough to keep his enemies at bay. He had to get out of here. While the prince installed itself inside his mind, he was vulnerable, and he'd keep getting more vulnerable until it was done. How long until he couldn't even walk straight? He had to make use of what coordination he had left while he could. Gemini shotgun! Throwing his hands forward, he unleashed a haphazard barrage of shotguns down the length of the hallway, slamming into the walls and floors and producing mighty clouds of dust. At the same time, he swung on his heels, already running for the half-broken window. He couldn't use Gemini World right now, but surely he could find somewhere to jump to and get out of here. He could. One step. Dragon Hadrian made it one step before tripping over his own feet. He fell hard, nose slamming into the floor, limbs splayed out like he was already a corpse. A groan of pain and frustration trickled out of his throat. Now, he thought, I guess now is when I stop being able to walk straight. No time to feel sorry for himself. If escape was no longer possible, he just had to maintain his defenses until the prince was done, even if he had no idea how long that would take. He grit his teeth and rolled over just in time to see a network of bone spears rushing for his prone form. He opened his mouth. God damn you! Those were the words he'd intended to come out of his mouth, but all that emerged was a string of nonsense vowels. Even speech was forbidden to him now, then. As if this entire thing wasn't difficult enough. Gemini shotgun! That, at least, still worked. His rapid-fire attack demolished the spears of bones as they came in. At this range, he literally wouldn't have been able to miss if he'd wanted to. The close quarters of the fight were both his death knell and his saving grace. "You can still win," he promised himself. "You have no choice but to win." Nebula 6 cried out, the broken ends of bones still protruding from his palms. What? Oh, sorry, they were Sans noises. Dragon's eyes widened. It wasn't just his speech that he'd lost, but his entire ability to comprehend language. Surely this had to be as bad as it could get, right? There wasn't more after this? It was almost done? The enemy moved faster than he was ready for. In an instant, Nebula 6 had charged in, plucking a broken pipe from the floor and coating it in multiple exoskeletons. The makeshift club slammed into Dragon from the side, sending him smashing through a wall and into the lounge beyond. Cold mist flooded in from the hallway, already coating the furniture with frost. He strained to pick himself up off the floor, but his body wouldn't obey. Even his thoughts seemed sluggish, slippery to the touch. He needed to think, though. There was something to be wary of. That Nebula, whatever number he was calling out to his ally, the old woman. Dragon couldn't understand what was being said, but there was a plan. There was a plan, surely a trap, something he'd fallen into or was falling into. He had to figure it. He had to think of... Uh-oh. Pain. Dragon understood that before anything else. The pain of being run through and having the blades crawl inside you. Half a dozen tendrils of bone bursting out from the floor beneath him, impaling him in just as many places and holding their prize up high. He could see the sun, a second sun, hallucinated by pain, a burn mark on the brain. Not good. The attacker, the name escaped him, with the spears that held him in death. One spear merged through his throat, cutting off his breathing. Others pinpricked his limbs and lungs, banning them from function. The funny mushrooms tried to heal the wounds, but the space was taken. Dragon gasped for air like a flopping fish. Undignified heap. Ow, 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 ow. Twitch, twitch. There was nothing to him but that now. Even the brain, just a stopped train. No rail, stretched forever, ungood. Eyes of blue stare out in nothing. No move, no nothing, no swivel or jeep. Old woman with cane hand, cave hand, skitterforth spider, eyes all alkali and goose, hand raised, not his, not cane, take off cane and separate object, and point single finger at dead boy and say, He, I, Gold Harvest! The widow didn't know what had befallen Dragon Hadrian, why his movements had suddenly become so clumsy and amateurish. But she was damned if she was going to let the chance pass her by. The assassin who ignored a tender throat was unworthy of the title. The widow's blade was ice, but the principle still held true. The strategy had been simple. With Hadrian's movement slowing as much as it did, it had been child's play for Nebula 6 to seize him with his bone spears and hold him aloft. From there, the widow just channeled Cold Harvest through those spears, guaranteeing a frozen death for whatever they were piercing, while sparing her and her ally from the after-effects. A white mist swirled throughout the room, but not nearly cold enough to kill. That was how you made the battered corpse of a Supreme. It was almost beautiful, frozen above them, still held in place, an ice sculpture tinted red by its own gore. The limbs twisted the wrong way around, the skin burst open from the sudden pressure, the head replaced by a stump, the first spurt of blood frozen in a moment that made it look like a firework. The widow lowered her cane, letting out a misty breath. She certainly hoped this didn't make her Supreme now. Her legs shook for a moment, the exhaustion of age, but she did not fall to it. This place was still a battlefield. She couldn't afford to let her guard down. "Old lady," Nebula 6 grunted, his eyes fixed on the carcass up above. "You okay?" "As well as can be expected," she nodded. "That was the Landgrave of Brainin back there, yes? We should get him to safety." Becketel Brainin narrowed his golden eyes. "This asshole was pretending to be the Lesser Chain's Nebula. That traitor Rays will be lurking around somewhere, too. He can't get away." "One thing at a time," the widow grunted, turning on her heel. "First we get the Landgrave somewhere safe, and then... Yes, then is the time for vengeance." The look in the widow's eyes surely told Becketel Brainin all he needed to know. This was no pacifist he was dealing with. She shared his desire for bloody retribution. When the time came for Albert Ray's judgment, even Nebula 6 might be forced to flinch. And so, without another word, he stalked past her, heading back towards the safe room. Gemini railgun! He didn't get very far. The thin blast of blue light surged out of the mist, slamming into Beckett and sending him flying backwards. The widow saw it as Nebula 6 flew past, the burning hole right in the center of his chest. Against any normal person, it would have been a lethal wound. Against the Nebula, the coin was still in the air. The widow reacted immediately, swinging her arm and sending a hail of icicles flying off into the fog. She heard them thud into the wall, but that was all she heard. No gasp of pain, no splash of blood, no body hitting the ground. Just the icicles thudding into the wall, and a second later a voice. Just ahead. To think. Just ahead. Hadrian's voice seemed to be coming from all around, like he'd become the room itself, his words bouncing off the walls oppressively. The widow took a step back, her keen eyes flicking in every direction. She would not let herself be caught by surprise. Claws of ice cooled themselves into existence over her fingers. I don't blame you, Hadrian's voice echoed. I'm actually kind of freaked out myself. Just ahead. What are you talking about? She demanded, waiting for the inevitable strike. How the hell did you survive that? In the reflection of her ice claws, she could still see Hadrian's corpse, the decapitated cadaver frozen above them, the decapitated cadaver. Oh, you've probably got it, Hadrian said breathlessly. The thing that was holding me back, the process. Well, it finished right in time. Crunch. At the last second, I was able to record just my head and fire it away with Gemini's shotgun. I mean, oh wow, that is kind of crazy, right? I'd never been able to risk that before. Not without assurance. Crunch. Is he fucking Gojo? The widow swung around in the direction of the incoming footsteps. And I mean, I know I keep saying it, but to think just ahead. I was able to come back from just ahead? That's just crazy. Crunch. Dragon Hadrian stepped into view. It was just as he'd said. He'd regenerated an entirely new body from just the stump of his neck, a new body with which he was now walking steadily forward, naked as the day he was born. He tore a UAP flag from the wall as he passed, wrapping it around himself to preserve his modesty, but the look in his eyes didn't seem vulnerable at all. Those were the eyes of someone invincible. Just from ahead, the widow breathed, mist rising from her mouth. That's what I'm saying, Hadrian replied, coming to a halt. I know I look calm, but I'm actually kind of freaking out right now. 3 meters between them and the wreckage of a couch. That obstacle would delay any attack, even if only slightly. She'd have to keep it in mind. Pierrot, the widow said coldly. Why did you kill him? He had something I wanted. The only way to take it was to kill him. It's as simple as that. The widow narrowed her eyes. I take it whatever you took was the reason for your clumsiness then. Something mental. An aether modification, or something of that nature. It took some time to settle, but now you have full access to it, yes? Hadrian stared at her with eyes blazing blue. Pierrot never told you about it, he mused, smiling slightly. But you're smart. I suppose it only makes sense that you were able to figure the general shape out through context clues. The smile dropped. It thinks we should kill you now. It was the strangest thing. In that moment, as the widow stood across from the Supreme in that cold and misty space, she swore she could hear bells. She could hear them as she lunged forward. She could hear them as she thrust her claws. She could hear them as she fell. As she fell back on the floor, the victim of a single clean shot, the bells continued to echo in her mind. Church bells, chapel bells, bells from a day long since frozen over. A chuckle tried to rise to her lips, but she had no more breath to give it. How strange. Why am I thinking about that now? She never found out. She was coping about the wedding, guys. Guys, I think the widow might have liked him a little bit. Maybe a little. Thoughts, Tanhoney?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, you're correct, yeah.
Trying to banter here. It's like talking to a corpse. Just ahead.
Just ahead.
Just a body. There's nothing in that brain. It's gone.
It's like it's still one-on-one. The body gets up behind her.
Yeah, he's like, just a body. From just a body, I came back.
It's like,
have to fight each other.
I'm a different guy from the rest of the story because I got a new head.
I'm the dragon that thinks with his other head.
My name's Wyvern Hadrian.
Wyvern Hadrian?
Yeah.
Oh, like dragon? Dragon Hadrian looked somberly down at the widow's body. Ideally, he hadn't wanted things to go like this. She had been Skipper's teacher, after all. Even if not beloved, she'd still been a part of his life. In Dragon's head, he'd played around the idea of recruiting the widow to his side, of leaving this place with the two of them as allies. But that had been nothing but a daydream. The prince had lent him enough context to make that obvious. It was the strangest thing. He'd expected having the prince inside his mind would feel like having Pan inside his mind. But no, not at all. Rather than having another guest inside his house, it felt like the house itself had been expanded with new corridors and wings. His thoughts seemed to flow so much more quickly, so much smoother, like the resistance had been removed. He looked down in his hand, clenching and unclenching his fist, pondering how it now felt subtly but unmistakably different. It would take some experimentation to get used to the prince's presence, and he had to make sure not to fall into the same trap as Jamie Pierrot. He wasn't the prince's master, but its accomplice. They were using each other, and that was the extent of it. The only one who decides what happens to me is me. Dragon Hadrian turned on his heel, took a single step, and stopped. He looked down. "Oh," he said. "You're still alive?" Nebula 6 Beckett Del Brandon was all but dead. His face was pressed against the floor, his hair hanging low, and he'd left a generous trail of blood behind him. And yet he'd managed to crawl across the floor and grab hold of Dragon's leg. "I won't let you get away?" Was it that sort of thing? Dragon shook the weak grip free and pointed his index finger down at the prone figure. If he proceeded to the safe room and resuscitated the Landgrave, there was the possibility of using Nebula 6 at a later date. But no. It wasn't worth the risk. He might draw his own conclusions from what the widow had been saying. Images clicked together in Dragon's mind, the move he'd used to finish off the Kaiser, distributing a single shot throughout an area nigh simultaneously. If he applied the same principle... He opened his mouth and spoke the words. Gemini coil gun. It was more a beam than a blast, the aurora of blue light scorching forth from Dragon's fingers and devouring the space presented to it. When the light finally faded, naught remained of the target save a severed arm and a clean hole burnt straight through the floor, and the floor below that, and the floor below that, and the floor below that. Oh, did he get Abdold?
He did.
No!
He was outside the safe room, he put his hand on the wall, like, what's this written here? Fucking tell Brandon when you read this and turn around.
The residual heat from the Gemini coil gun had done its work. His former bloody corpse dropped down from... So how does Gemini coil gun work? I get it's doing it, but it's not actually bouncing, it's a beam. So what's the justification?
Well, it looks like a beam. It's bouncing in that area, basically, is what's actually happening.
Just so fast?
Yeah.
That it looks like a constant... Wow. When the light finally faded... Oh, sorry. Dragon lowered his hand and turned away. The residual heat from the Gemini coil gun had done its work. His former bloody corpse dropped down from above, splatting into a pile of viscera right in Dragon's path. He didn't mind. Dragon walked right through his own gore, trailing red footprints behind him. There was still work to be done today, after all. The first hell had opened its mouth. Oh. Yeah, what do you even do against him at this point? Is he stronger than Cadman?
I would not say so.
Really?
Survivability, maybe. Because, like, Cadman would have to, like, use that ability specifically to heal. But if Dragon's, like, insta-killed and annihilated, if you destroy his brain, the brain's the bit that is the
I know Dragon's stronger survivability because Cadman didn't go just ahead after he got decapitated.
Yeah.
Oh, man, just ahead! You're so awesome, Muzazi! I can't believe this. I don't even know how you feasibly kill Dragon Hadrian. You have to, like, freeze him in such a way that he can't react instantaneously, and then you need to scramble his brains, and then you would need to find a way to isolate Pan in his body and also kill Pan.
Like, how did the ice not... Dragon's gone.
How did the ice not freeze Pan and prevent her from acting or kill her? Fungus can't survive in cold.
Before he was frozen, he recorded his own head. It wasn't severed by the ice. He recorded his own head and fired it as a projectile out of the ice.
But was Pan in his brain?
She's in his whole body.
Oh, so a lot of her was lost, but she will presumably grow back. Okay. Because is that what it is? Because, like, I was wondering how she's able to have enough of her to constantly keep reconstituting, but is she, like, growing by eating his nutrients?
They are integrated. Physically, they have the same body.
Okay.
So... Like,
between Pan and the Prince and his cognate brain, he has to eat so many calories. There's no way. His diet has to be nutrients. Like... He has to be like fucking Michael Phelps with the 6 large pizzas a day. Just to survive.
Lend me some analysis. This is half-dead Nebula 6 we're up against.
Open the corridors of my brain.
This is...
does Aether... Here's an important question. Does Aether usage expend energy? Does it take calories? Is it like an exercise? It uses information. So it's no physical exertion.
No.
So theoretically, if you were really good at enforcing, you could just make all your movements really lazy and light, and then the Aether reinforcement speed and strength carries them.
Yeah, so you'd only get as tired as you would for the actual normal movement, basically.
Interesting.
So you would eventually get tired if you did it continuously, but, you know.
Okay. Alright, well, we have some questions. I accidentally missed some, but we got really into the theory crafting, and I kind of lost my place a little bit, because I got really excited at my ideas. So let me see if I can find the questions. Apologies in advance. Weiser gave me a helpful link. Okay. They didn't put the emojis they said they were going to put for one skipped. I skipped someone on accident, but I can't remember who.
You did what?
Whatever, I'll just start here. MT asks, what's the percentage of Aether users who need some kind of physical material, armament, weapon, etc. to get to their full potential, like Serena, Ruth, Dragon, and Pheno, to those who don't need any of that, like Skipper, Bruno, Musazi, and North?
I'd say it's heavily, like, 80-20. The vast majority of people would need, like, something to use Aether with. Like, some, just for, like, imaging purposes, even. Okay. Like, it's easier to, like, come up with an ability that turns this thing I'm holding into, like, a super sword, rather than one that makes a super sword out of, like, dust or something.
Okay. So here's my new thing, since people didn't do it. I'm going to put an emoji react on every question we read, so I don't miss any from here on out. So I'm going to put a heart here.
Do you like the freak emoji for it?
No.
What if the prince...
Why is there...
alternate universe where the prince was freaky when he took over? When he got himself by the gun.
Well, he was a freak and he was called the Freaks.
He's like...
Weiser asks, if an Aether Awakening is hit by Durfry shoots, but its body survives, can the Awakening survive, or is DF a 100% certain kill on any Awakening?
It would be certain kill.
Alright.
If it hit.
Greenie asks,
the corpse at that point is something being puppeted, it is not producing the Aether Awakening.
Greenie asks, if either Serena or Bruno were pulled into Gemini Dominion in their current state, would the other be pulled with?
Maybe not, but probably what would happen is if Bruno went in and Serena ran away, Bruno would, once the range limit is reached, Bruno would disappear from inside Gemini Dominion and she could, like, and appear again near Serena.
Okay.
But the opposite probably would not happen. Bruno would be stuck within 7, or however long, in that range limit around where Serena had disappeared.
So, Lan now has a question, and I have a follow-up question for it, depending on your answer. Lan asks, has there ever been a successful Repellion to depose an unpopular Supreme?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe you
now,
yeah.
I was going to ask you, does the one against Damien, was that a rebellion or just like a military coup?
I don't know what the difference would be.
So rebellion would be like the people rise up alongside everyone, and it's like, you know, this is like we're going to take down our government. A revolution, yeah. Whereas a military coup is more like a military general who's like military likes him, assassinates the leader, and it's like, now I'm in charge.
Ragnar was not part of the military. He was more of a semi-independent sort of warlord guy. Who was like, this guy, this Damon is a beta cook. Let's get him.
Basically. Alright, and the people agreed with that more or less? Or a subset of the people?
Yeah. So he got some people from all sorts of people.
How politically split is the supremacy? Is it like modern two-party politics where it's like half and half, or is everyone like a turbo-fascist, or is it like a lot of people are pretty normal, but they just pretend to be turbo-fascists?
Well, a lot of people are like... The Supreme, usually, it's like, well, yeah, we've got this big guy, but the body's really the ones doing a lot of this shit. Like, they're making stuff work.
And the bodies are elected, right?
Yeah.
Or, no, they're appointed by the Supreme, right? I don't remember how it works.
I believe they're elected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I gotcha. So if I talk to the average citizen in Azumah, assuming they're under no threat of retaliation by their government, what are their political leanings?
In Azumah, it's the capital, so you'd probably have a higher than usual percentage of big supremacy.
It's like a conservative version of Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And it also depends who the Supreme is at the time. Like Henry the Glutton, you would have a much wider range of people like fuck the Supreme.
Has there ever been a situation where a Supreme, like Henry the Glutton, is so bad that people just like start moving away from Azumha? Like, yeah, I gotta go to this planet further towards the border. I gotta go live with my cousin for a bit.
But it's easier said than done to cross the border and move somewhere else.
Yeah, well, or like, I mean, just live as far away from the Supreme as possible, like on the edge of the space.
Well, he doesn't. The last couple since Gale the Golden, they don't really live on Azumar. They live in.
So here's actually a question I have. You know, when you move to another country, you need to get like a visa, all that, blah blah blah. What's it like moving to another planet if it's within the same government, or moving to another government?
Different governments would be a lot more difficult, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a bit easier to go from Supremacy to Final Church or UAP to Final Church than between Supremacy and the UAP.
Yeah, because I imagine it's like, oh, you've decided to be it's like the equivalent of becoming a nun. They're like, oh, whatever, you're religious.
So probably what some people do is go to the Final Church and then go to the other one from there.
That's actually really smart! After they stop caring about you.
Yeah.
That's clever. I love the idea that the Final Church is like there's a non-insignificant portion of people who's like, yeah, I'm just waiting 2 years so I can go to the
there's a constant push within the three branches to like actually convert these people.
That's so funny.
It's like, hey, you know, I get that you're trying to move to the UAP, but you know what? There's life here.
Don't you want to believe in life?
Don't you want an arranged marriage? No.
You could be a Knight of Reason. Oh my god, speaking of, in Andor, the arranged marriage scene...
Andor's so good.
When I learned that Mon Mothma's kid is like a trad cat, I was like, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, the suffering.
It's too rude.
Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.